Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter. I am joined as always by Tim. Wonderful for an audio podcast, Timmy. Yes,
it's
welcome.
Visual too.
Well, yeah, but people listen to the audio version, don't see the visuals.
Yeah, but the people that see the visuals don't listen to the audio version.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to hire like a sign language person in the corner?
Wait, you think the people that watch it on YouTube actually have the volume on?
Wait, are you saying they're watching it for our charming good looks?
That's a much more gentlemanly way of putting it.
Hunks? We're hunks? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Sexy boys? I don't
Sexy
know.
Boys, yeah. Well, that's the original name of the podcast, but
Sexy Boys After Midnight. Welcome everyone. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we've watched a movie, and we talk about it. It's really quite that simple. And coming up today, we're still working through 2021 movies that deserve to be discussed. And today we are working on an M. Night Shyamalan film. Of all things, we are going to talk about Old, which is the film that came out from him last year. And do you know what's so funny is that I've been porting over old episodes to the movie channel, right, to Male Fuzz Movies, because that's where Screams After Midnight lives now. And
that's
what's so funny is that I just ported over Split.
That is funny.
Which came a week after Bye Bye Man. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because at the end of Bye Bye Man, and that was so terrible, and it was like the third bad movie in a row we'd done, I said something to the effect of, we've had a shit streak of movies and our only hope now is M. Night Shyamalan to save us. And surprisingly, with Split, he kind of did.
Sure, yeah.
It was a pretty good movie. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. So, here we are today to talk about Old, and we'll see if Shyamalan has done it again. I suppose I give the premise. I was going to ask Tim the question, but I'll give the basic premise. There's a beach that if you go to it, it will age you very, very quickly. That is the premise of the film. And a bunch of people get trapped there and they're aging, and there's lots of wacky effects as a result of that. We'll talk about that. We'll obviously start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we get to spoilers, but I am not going to delay this question any longer. Tim, how do you feel about Old?
Well, I mean, you might as well just call me John Locke because I love this mysterious island. Actually, I mean, maybe I'm being a little overhyped. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't say I loved it, but I actually did like it. I thought it was pretty good. Maybe this is controversial, but I don't know. I like M. Night. Like I'm not saying every movie he's done is perfect. I mean, that's far from it. But I do think he is a very, very interesting director, and he, takes big swings. And there's a couple I haven't seen. Like I haven't seen Avatar or After Earth, or like the first like one or two like non-horror stuff that he did. But like all the horror stuff he did, obviously some of it is very bad, but like still, I think it's interesting both in watching and discussing.
I'm not going to do it, but this is the point where I would intercut a little clip of you talking about The Visit and how much you despise.
Oh, I hate The Visit. Yeah. No, I mean I absolutely hated that one. At least like I remember it, and there's something more to it than just some generic thing that I forgot or whatever.
That's true. You remember that poop scene?
It's mostly the rapping that I remember that gives me nightmares. That goddamn annoying kid rapper. And hey, there's a rapper in Old too. So I don't know. Maybe
he's not a kid.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was the day before.
Maybe he was. We don't know. Yeah, so I would say I think this is a pretty effective movie. Honestly, I don't think it's perfect. There's some of the I think usual problems that come with an M. Night joint, which I think a lot of it has to do with sometimes like some of the dialogue and stuff just feels a little stiff, a little robotic. But I do think he does like shoot stuff very well. Like I don't know, I like the way he composes a lot of his shots. Like there's a lot of stuff with the way the camera is kind of going back and forth, or how he'll I think he's a very patient director. Like there's a lot of stuff that he kind of waits to show you, and then I think the payoff is usually pretty good. And yeah, I'd say it's a tad too long, and there's some stuff at the end I'm not crazy about. I wouldn't say there's like a twist so much in this, but more, I guess, just the kind of general explanation of.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a twist in this either.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that he normally has twists.
Yeah, but once you do kind of get, I guess, like that revelation, or when you find out why stuff is going on, I didn't really care about it that much. I guess it's not bad, but just didn't really feel like I needed it. But I will say the horror in this, I did actually feel is pretty effective. And I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but I guess maybe me being at this like certain age that I am, like, you know, getting older is something that is starting to, you know, affect me more, and I'll wake up and have aches and pains, and like, you know, I gotta start thinking more about, you know, my diet and all this crap, and it sucks. And like, I don't know, getting you know, older is scary. Like, you know, not everyone is going to be chased around by some guy in a hockey mask in the woods, but you know, everyone does get old. I mean, I guess if you're Benjamin Button, you do it in reverse or whatever, but you know, generally, like, most people they do age. So you know, I think that is you know, there was some stuff that he was tapping into in this one that I felt like, you know, I don't know, it hit me. And you know, I don't want to go into until we get into spoilers, but there was something in this movie that I actually found incredibly affecting, especially given my situation. I just won't go more into it than that, but like, yeah, I mean,
as a Buddhist, yes,
yeah, of course. But no, I actually thought, you know, I was surprised because I think I'd heard some good things, but I don't know if I was expecting that much. But by the end, I was like, yo, that's pretty good.
I love how how in the middle of that, you sort of like, just in case you offend anyone who doesn't happen to age, you'll say that most people age, not everyone.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, God damn it. I mean, we always have to have that one annoying person in the comments like, well, actually, I took a pill and I don't age, so screw you guys, 1 star. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it's very close to some comments we've had in the past. I agree. Yeah. So you said that you'd heard some good things. I'd heard some good things. I'd heard some bad things. I would go as far to say that this was extremely divisive when it came out.
Ooh.
I heard extreme at both ends. I heard people who loved some things about it, hated some things about it. And one of the things you said there about the direction and the camera work is that, you know, that's something that I think dates back to all of M. Night's early movies. You know, Unbreakable's my favorite M. Night film, and I love that film too. It's not a horror movie, obviously, but like I have like poured thoughts over that film, and as far as the direction and how the scenes tell its story, and I think it's exceptionally well directed. And I see glimpses of that in a movie like this. I see like the way the camera will linger on something and not reveal the key detail. And here it's a lot of like not showing. It's like, you know, the kids have probably aged, but they're hiding it a little bit until it's time to really show it, kind of thing. And there's a lot of that going on.
Can I say one thing about that real quick? So I was watching this at home, and generally when we watch stuff, we usually have the subtitles on, just because, you know, we're old and sometimes we don't always hear stuff and everything. So the subtitles do kind of ruin stuff, because yeah, when they're not trying to show stuff, but like a character is talking, like in parentheses with the subtitles, it'll say older voice. It's like,
yeah. Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame. But it really, what they need is they need like, and they sometimes offer this actually, because what you're essentially describing is the hard of hearing subtitles, where it'll give you extra little bits of details for people who actually can't hear it. What you need is like vanilla subtitles that is just the dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, presented for you, but they don't always offer that. They tend to just, people can just use the hard of hearing ones, and you can, but there's these little bits that's like, I don't need to see it saying the door creaks, like, you know. Anyway, did I like the movie? This is kind of what I was building up to, right? This is where I was going with this. I kind of did. You know, I like the premise. It's kind of the gimmicky premise that I really enjoy. Not everything that comes from the premise necessarily pans out. Because I think there's some stuff in this that's intentionally very funny, but there's also some stuff that's unintentionally very funny, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about that. I actually also agree about the ending in that there's like 10 minutes extra at the end. I'm like, you're over explaining this. Like if you just cut to like a credits like 10 minutes ago, it would have been more effective, I think. I almost think that's like a victim of like people, the audiences want things explained. They want it to be like completely clear, crystal clear. Whereas I'm like, a bit of ambiguity, I think would have maybe even helped some of this towards the end. But
you know who must get really mad about this is like the people that make those YouTube videos like old ending explained. Like they'll be like, oh god damn it.
They already explained it in the movie.
It's like, that was my job.
Yeah, I mean they still do it though. You see those video titles for like The Avengers ending explained. What did you not understand? What was hard to get? They saved the day.
Yeah.
The Shatari fell. The Avengers stood tall. Loki was in prison. It was easy peasy. What, spoilers, I guess, for the end of Avengers. So the ending kind of goes too far in over explaining things and like putting too much of a neat bow on everything. And we'll talk about that obviously when we get to it. But I like the general vibes. I do think the direction's maybe the strongest part of it. There are some nitpicks to be had about like, they're supposed to be continuously aging at this rapid rate, but it kind of feels like they kind of pause for a bit because they switch actors for the kids at a certain age, and it's like, okay, well they're going to stick with them for a while, and it doesn't necessarily feel like they're gradually continuously aging necessarily. But like that was always going to be a problem with this premise, is that how do you reliably show that consistently throughout the whole film?
Sure.
I'd even say like some of the middle-aged characters, like it takes too long before they start to like show wrinkles or grey hairs. I'm like, it feels like it should have been quicker than this, but these are nitpicky little like, if you just go with the flow, accept that, and enjoy kind of the situations that arise because of the rules of this speech, because I love rules, Tim, and there's rules to this speech. And indeed, as they learn what those rules are, and they're kind of like just having to start to believe the unbelievable, there's some fun to be had. There's some interesting character dynamics there, but there is also there is stuff that's kind of wild, and some of it ends up being kind of unintentionally funny, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. But I would generally say though that I enjoyed the suspense, I enjoyed the teasing of what was happening and the characters realizing things, and I enjoyed the majority of the movie for both good and bad reasons. And it's really just the ending that I think like I was just kind of like, I don't need this, like this is just too much. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So
I mean, I'm really digging this. To me, it kind of feels like a third wave of M. Night's career. Like, I feel like the first third, he had a couple of like really solid movies. Everyone like seemed to be really impressed, and then he has this kind of middle section where just everything was getting panned, and like that's kind of where you start to get the like, oh boy, another M. Night Shyamalan movie, like ugh, like where you start dreading it. And then this last couple of years, like I feel like everything has been like, not everything is like raving like, oh my god, like masterpieces, but it seems like he's kind of gotten his groove back, where he's maybe, I don't know, embracing the schlockiness like a little bit more, and the stuff has been like, again, I didn't like The Visit, but I don't think I like.
I think that's where it started, though. I mean, as much as we're not super big on that, I think that was him saying, "I'm going to do smaller movies. I'm going to do low budget movies. I'm not going to do the big sci-fi weird epic with Will Smith and his son. I'm going to do something smaller." And if anything for me, he's been 50-50, because Glass was kind of like, I like some things about Glass, but it was disappointing. It was it was nothing compared to Split, and it was definitely nothing compared to Unbreakable, which I do think is phenomenal. But no, I would say this is like, I think I like Split more than this. I think Split is something I like more as a serious movie, but I would say this is like, another solid movie from him. Like I will happily rewatch this. I had fun with it.
Totally, yeah.
And so yeah, you're right. It's a weird career, and he's got like Sixth Sense, Unbreakable. Most people still dig Signs. Village is where people started to kind of really get divisive on him. And
maybe controversial, but I kind of like The Village actually. But
I did at the time, but I've not seen it since like 2006. So I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
I'm not going to like make any grand statements. Lady in the Water, everyone kind of agreed. It feels like he's kind of losing touch here a bit. Although the music by James Newton Howard is very good, if nothing else. I mean, if that's any consolation to anyone. But then he did The Happening, and that was the oh no, he's a joke
people's
now.
breaking point.
He's a joke now, and much like you, I have not seen The Last Airbender. I have not seen it After Earth, but they were both just absolutely torn to shreds. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of what else we could talk about before we go into spoilers, because I mean, it is very, you know, it's very, very premise heavy. Once you get into it, you start building up all the characters, and they all reveal things, and so on and so on. You know, and you know, some of the dialogue is a bit still. I mean, you said that there's like the young boy, the 6-year-old, he is intentionally written to have this really smart dialogue that no 6-year-old would ever say.
Yeah,
and it's a little funny in places. He has this thing where he asks people like their profession and like where they're from, and but he comes out with lines like, I think at the start the parents are talking about the fact that the daughter's singing, and she gets like embarrassed and stops singing, and he says something like, "Oh, you took the spontaneity away from her," something. I'm like, dude, what the hell? No 6-year-old like talks like this. And then there's a couple of he talks something about having mortgages at one point, and I'm like, a 6-year-old does not know what a mortgage is. Stop this.
Yeah.
But aside from that, though, like there's a lot of smart things in the script. Like that opening scene when they're on the bus on their way to this resort that they're going to, like there is like, it sets up the themes of the movie where the mum says something to the effect of, I can't wait to hear what you sound like when you're older singing, because you're going to grow into it and you're going to be this great singer. And they have this like conversation to the effect of, no, stop thinking about the future, let's live in the now. And it's like, yeah, don't wish your kids are going to grow up too quick, because foreshadowing. But because it's a sort of conversation that a lot of parents have, and that kind of comes up when you're talking about kids, it kind of felt natural to me.
For sure, yeah.
But it neatly fit into the themes, obviously, that they're setting up for the movie. And I'm not going to say everything they set up is like smooth. Some of them are a little bit forced, a little bit clunky, but this felt smooth to me. Was bringing up these ideas. So.
Yeah, and then I feel like, it's something that if you go back and rewatch, I feel like there'd be little stuff that maybe you might pick up on a second viewing that, like, oh, okay, I see how they're setting this up or that up. Yeah,
for sure. So I think we just have to give the spoiler warning, because I'm not sure how we talk about any more of this without. So spoilers from this point on. For old, you have been warned. So we're just our main family. Obviously parents. We have 2 kids. We got a 6-year-old boy, and we got like a 11-year-old girl, I think was the ages.
11 or 12, something along those lines.
Yeah. We have the parents, who we find out early on are actually going to be separated, and this is like they're trying to have this trip without telling the kids, so they have one last happy vacation with their parents before it all comes crumbling down. And it hurts inside.
Good luck.
No, it wasn't actually quite the lyrics, but I sort of went into Hulk Hogan lyrics there for a second. But the lyrics are, when it comes crashing down, it hurts inside, not crumbling down. So
wait, the Hulk Hogan lyrics?
Yeah, he's to his theme song.
Oh, okay.
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside is the first lines of his song.
Did he sing this, or is this like
no?
Okay,
so someone else sang. This is what he used to enter to the ring with. Like,
gotcha. Okay.
Right. Because the chorus is, "I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man." Some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that the same music they use in "It's Always Sunny"?
They did. That's what they used. Yes, Danny DeVito was posing to Hulk Hogan's music. I love that you remembered that from me saying the chorus. But yes, so we're introduced to the family, and we also find out that the mother has a benign tumor. She's been told it's nothing to necessarily worry about right now, but it is there. We find out that she's a museum curator, and the dad's in insurance, which is not that relevant, but some other jobs do come up that are quite important, and her museum curation is important because she's able to kind of like, ballpark guess, like, remains and things like that.
I mean, maybe you can refresh my memory in case I'm forgetting something, but so I think he says he's an actuary, which means he kind of like assesses like how risky, like, a client or customer or whatever is. So I feel like that would come up more, because it's like, obviously you're in a dangerous situation, so you have this guy whose job is to assess risk. So I thought maybe he might like obviously he's in a situation where he doesn't know a lot of stuff, but it didn't really seem like that kind of came up much or anything.
No, because obviously there's other characters. Rufus Sewell's family, we're interested in them. He's a doctor. He's got a very young wife that's much younger than him, who you might remember from the Neon Demon,
Okay.
or Lovecraft Country, as well. But she is this, the young trophy wife. They've got a young daughter who's like 6, and they're also there with, I think it's his mother.
Yes.
The old lady. Obviously, because if you know the premise of the movie going in, you see the old lady and go, "Well, I know who's going first."
Yeah.
Like her time, like she's already so close. And then there's another couple that we're introduced to, where the husband's a nurse and the wife's a therapist. We kind of get introduced to the idea that the wife in this couple, she takes seizures. So they all have at least one person in every group has a medical condition. It's not clear what the doctor's family is at first, but then as the movie goes on, it's just like, no, he has a mental condition. He's starting to lose it.
Yeah, it's like early onset dementia or something.
Yeah, and it obviously gets worse as the movie goes on. They run into a character who's already at the beach. This rapper that was previously mentioned.
Yeah, mid-sized sedan.
Yeah, he's got a blood condition, something to do with clotting. And there's a woman whose body turns up dead, who had MS, and so it's like, okay, there's all these people with medical conditions. That obviously feeds into like why they're chosen and why they're lured to this, because they are lured. Like the owner of this compound like recommends this like private spot to them, and like has M. Night Shyamalan drive them to the beach.
The director literally brings them there.
And then he spends the rest of the movie filming them from afar.
Yeah.
Which is very
with a sniper
director.
rifle.
Oh, it's like a sniper lens. Yeah, he's got.
I thought he literally had a gun in case they were trying to escape.
I don't think he needed one, because there was no way to escape other than one, loophole.
That's what I thought is in the end, if they popped up, from there, that he might have to do that.
I don't think I noticed a gun, but maybe there was one. I just didn't notice it. But I thought it was just the lens he was looking through. But
could have been.
You may be right. I don't recall. But yeah, so they get to the beach. It gives you a sense of their relationships with each other. The young boy befriends the nephew of the owner of the place, which is important for later. Yeah. But once we're on the beach, though, that's where the movie really starts to click, because that's where it starts to like slowly reveal its premise. And that stuff is pretty fun. Simple little things like the young boy's like trunks, because they're in the beach, so he's only wearing trunks, and he complains they're too tight, and his mum looks like, don't be silly, they're brand new, and she goes to like sort of like put her finger in to sort of like loosen them a bit, and they are like really tight. Like the idea that he's grown and like they are going to eventually just burst because he's getting big. And obviously this is a problem with the daughter as well. She eventually sort of gives her own bathing suit when she's like teenage sized, but like these are the first hints, and the dead body of course is the big first like, oh, this is dangerous. Like it's hard to remember the exact sequence of events here, but like ultimately they discover that they can't leave, because if they try and walk back through the little cave system that got them down here, they black out. They just get like a headache and black out. It's like a almost like natural defense mechanism.
Yeah, and they actually have like a very scientific-y way of explaining it, which is like similar to if you're diving, like you can't go up to the surface too fast because of the differences in pressure. I guess kind of the differences in your cells between rapidly aging and not, like, would just cause you to pass out, which
just like the deep house, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean the one thing that made me, obviously not all of this makes that much sense, it's like it's good enough for a movie. I will say the one that made me roll my eyes, it felt like there was a line of dialogue when they started realizing, wait, this is what's happening to us. Someone says, why aren't our hair and nails growing? It's a silly rate, and like they just have to come up with a reason why, like, quickly, because like we can't deal with that, so let's just have a reason why that's not happening and just go with it.
It's like a little explainy, but I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, it's where all the other elements come into it, and like how it operates, where like I say, the camera work when it's sort of like hiding the kids' faces because you realize like, oh, they're probably aging, and like the parents, like, because they've been like talking about the fact that this dead body's washed up on the beach of this woman, and they're debating all that. They spend like half an hour, maybe 20 minutes away from the kids, and then when they see their kids again, it's like, oh shit, I don't recognize my children because they have aged so much.
Yeah. Like, who are you? And it's like, it's me, your son.
Yeah. So that stuff is honestly pretty entertaining. And I think the camera work does a lot to sort of keep it nice and mysterious and tense in places. And
there's like a one kind of like sequence of events where that everything's getting really chaotic, and like, I think the mom is like having some problems, and like then like the kids are aging, and I think that's maybe when they discover the dead body or something, and the camera's just kind of going back and forth between all these people, and like you really feel like the anxiety because there's like so much going on, and it's kind of like hard to like focus, like, all right, well, do we want to talk about what's going on over here, or like, oh crap, like we need to pay attention over here?
Yeah, everyone's sort of like chiming in with what they think's important right now, and it's like there's no control to the chaos. Everyone's just starting to freak out. Yeah, there's a lot of good. I think that's what it does well, is kind of the natural build of everyone realizing what kind of serious problem they're having, and like just that. Yeah, that realization is just it's fun to like watch unfold, and yeah, so that's good stuff. Yeah, the medical stuff comes into it though. You've got like this tumor like that she has grows, and she eventually collapses, and like now I don't know if you can literally just cut a tumor out like this.
I mean, I guess maybe a temporary solution, but yeah, it feels like you would probably need a little bit more.
Well, this is the weird thing. They establish one of the first things that happens with the doctor, with Rufus Sewell, is that he slashes the rapper's face with a pocket knife. And this is him starting to lose it, and he's getting like really paranoid, possibly racist as well. Let's throw that on the table.
I'd say definitely racist.
Because he starts saying, "Oh, he was going to rob stuff from my house," and I'm like, "We're on a beach, dude. Like, what are we talking about?"
He's like, "I thought he was going to attack us," and it's like he's literally just standing there.
But he slashes him in the face, and when the guy pulls his hand away, like the cut stopped bleeding, and it's already a scar. And so they all effectively have like Wolverine healing here because all the cuts just heal really quickly, and so maybe you could argue that this works better than it otherwise would because her body's going to heal like super quick or something.
That would have been funny if someone was just like, hey, I wonder if like I cut off my hand if it'll just grow back. And then they cut off their hand.
Yeah, so let's not going to do that. No, well, because this is one of these things that was almost a little unintentionally funny. Was when the doctor's like doing this operation, and okay, well, part of this is intentionally funny because this is where he starts doing this thing where he's about to cut into her to perform like this like weird amateur well, he's not amateur, he's a surgeon, but this weird like makeshift surgery, and just before he's about to cut into her, he goes, "Hey, I'm thinking of a movie. Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando were both in it. Does anyone know what that was?" And he just like starts trailing off, and it was really making me laugh. And it's later on when another big tragic thing happens, right, which we'll get to, but as this really dark tragic thing happens, and everyone's running up to them, and everyone's like really concerned and watching in shock and horror, and he's in the background just goes, "Guys, can we focus on what's important here? What was that movie with Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando?" And it made me laugh so much. And he's got mental illness. I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it really made me laugh. And maybe it was just his delivery. I don't know, but it cracked me up. But I think that's intentionally kind of funny.
Sure, yeah. And it's kind of like funny, like especially the first time, because I didn't necessarily pick up right away that that's what was happening. So like it makes sense later on, but the first time it's kind of like, that's kind of weird. Like what's going on? Yeah,
because we know that the only thing we've heard so far is that he's under some stress, and that's why they're on this vacation. But obviously it gets clear that he's losing it as the movie goes on. But one of the things that happens here that I think is a little unintentionally funny is that so he cuts the stomach to like do this operation to pull out the tumor, and it just immediately heals, right? And it's like, oh, that's a bit unfortunate. So we get this weird scene where 4 people are actually like holding this wound open with like their fingers, and I'm like, this feels really unsanitary. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he pulls out this tumor. Like we see a tumor come out of her stomach, and it's at this point in the movie where I'm like, This movie's kind of wild.
Big.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, yeah, it was huge. Yeah. This movie's kind of wild. Like, it's doing some like insane stuff, and it does actually, because I think it's maybe during this. Is it during this where the two 6-year-olds who are now like early teens are together in the tent?
It might.
Is it during this?
Probably, because that's when like no one's paying attention to.
Yeah. They're taken like further away, and because they're told to like leave. It's when the mum's like starting to get sick, where it's like, you know, they say no, go and play somewhere because like this is, you know, too scary, and like mum just needs to rest for a bit. But we cut to them lying in the tent, and they're just kind of staring at each other, and they're talking about how, okay, they're bigger now, and it's hiding their faces, so we get the sense that they're a bit older again. But it's like they're saying how I'm also thinking differently. Like, I'm feeling things that are different, and I'm like, oh no, the libido's starting to come in. And this is the thing, like, this concept is a little bit almost silly, but at the same time you think about it, like, if you took someone who had the mind of a 6-year-old and suddenly gave like two, I mean, actually in this case, get two people who were 6-year-old, right, and both had the minds of a 6-year-old, and you suddenly gave them like the sex drive of a 14-year-old or whatever,
Jesus.
right?
Yeah.
And they were left alone, and because keep in mind, like, neither of these kids presumably has ever had a talk about sex or really knows anything about it. They're just talking, and it's getting kind of intimate, and the arms are kind of around each other, but you don't really see anything, obviously. And then it's like later on where everyone's coming back up to the tent, and like they walk out, and she's hungry and he's not, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is she hungry? And sure enough, they come up to them, and like she's pregnant. She's like months pregnant, and I'm like, oh man, this is hilarious. Kinda, you know, like there's a schlocky element to it. I mean, it's kind of interesting in a genuine way, but also pretty schlocky as well at the same time.
For sure, yeah.
But I love that even though she's pregnant, she just thinks she's gotten fat because she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand, like, you know, how babies are made effectively. Oh, so yeah, really insane stuff. And she gives birth like 20 minutes later, whatever it is.
About that, yeah. No, I will say for, you know, I mean, we can get into the baby stuff, but I actually did find that like genuinely sad, like with what happens like to the baby, because I mean, it basically dies right away because, you know, they leave it alone for a minute, but since everything ages rapidly, like, you know, if you like, babies can quickly die from neglect, so just them, you know, just leave it alone for that little bit of time,
like 2 seconds, basically. Yeah.
It passes away, and obviously, like, you know, I'm coming at this as like a relatively new father, but that really hit me. Like, I was like, wow, this is like super sad. Like, that was really dark. It's like, you know, like the parents of this child like are not prepared for. No, I mean, no one's prepared for this, but like two 6-year-olds especially are not prepared for like the feelings of being a parent and then losing the child in the span of half an hour. You know, like, it's all really dark, which is why what I'm about to say is unintentionally funny. Might you might not agree with, but okay. So other things happen, and eventually, you know, the 6-year-old, and I say 6-year-old, but obviously he's not 6 anymore, but like just in terms of keeping the character straight, 6-year-old boy goes up to the 6-year-old girl who's from the other family, obviously, and she's holding her dead baby in like a sheet. And one of the things that's been established at this point is that the dead woman who like washed ashore, they lift up the you know, what they've put over her, and she's just a skeleton, and it establishes that even after death, like, they're deteriorating as quick as this. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, is there anything left in this like sheet that she's holding? Because it's been a little bit of time, and I'm wondering, like, what is she actually holding at this point? And it's, you know, it's the
and
it's a 6-year-old boy who's like, okay, I think it's time to like put him to rest, and he takes the baby away from her, and as he's walking, it's basically, you can hear like some crunching, and there's just like bone dust coming out of the sheet from the bottom of it, and like. Maybe this says a lot about me, but I thought this was unintentionally a little bit funny because it was just because it was so extremely dark. Like, there's this thing where if you go far in like dark direction that you come around where, okay, this is so absurdly dark that it's just kind of funny now.
For sure, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, like, a lot of times laughter is like, you know, a common response when something is like uncomfortable, and I found it to be like extremely uncomfortable. But
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, I do think it's sad, but I also understand it is extremely like over the top and like very dark. So yeah, I do get that there's like kind of a dark sense of humor to it as well.
Yeah, I just like this is, it kind of felt like they sat down planning this movie. Shyamalan, I don't know if he wrote it himself. Let me have a quick peek.
I think it's based on a book.
Oh yeah, no, it's based on a book. You're right. It's based on a novel called Sandcastle. Yeah. He seems to have written the screenplay himself. Well, yeah. Well, in this case, I'll direct this at the book writers then more than him. Like it kind of feels like it's like, okay, so if this was happening, what would be all the things that would come up? What are all the ideas that would arise? And it sets up that they're getting really desperate at this point. They've kind of worked out like how much they're going to age even if they just spend like a night here. I think they say that 2 days would be 50 years of aging, and it's like, okay, well that's bad because you're going to be dead in a couple of days then. Even the 6-year-olds, but it's not going to take that long. They'll last an extra half day or something like that. But that's about it. And it's like, okay, so it turns out like the reason why like the swimmer like washed back ashore is like just like going through the cave system. If they try and swim like around to another beach, they pass out in the water and obviously they're drowning. And that happens to the nurse character. He tries to swim away, he fails. Then his wife is distraught with that and she's freaking out. She dies via seizure. Although they do not point out that she's not had a seizure like since she arrived. Like this is the first one she has, and it's quite a bit of time into it, which is an important detail for the ending because they bring it up. But so all this crazy stuff's happening, but like one of the ideas they have is like, well, what if one of us climbs up the cliff face? Like, is that possible? And part of me's thinking,
no, it's gonna not end well.
Like, well, immediately I'm like, well, walking through the system doesn't work. You pass out. And you get dragged back out by other people. Swimming.
Or if you could figure out the point of where you pass out, if you run up to it and then kind of like jump, like could you clear enough space so when you do wake up, you're okay?
I don't think so. Going back to the diving comparison, or rising up in the water, like I don't think you skipping part of it would help. It would probably just make it worse.
Okay, sure.
They may just instantly kill you in that sense.
That's true.
But like, so you've established that leaving these two different methods both end the same way. They end with you passing out, and obviously passing out in the water is very dangerous because you'll probably drown. And sure enough, that's what's happened to at least 2 people. So it's actually it's the mother of the baby that died, right? The 6-year-old girl who's now like 20 or whatever. She starts just climbing out of like sheer desperation. She can't help it anymore, and she's climbing up this cliff face. And at first, like, they're yelling at her to come down, but when she's so far, it's like, well, maybe she can make it. Like, maybe this is the one way we get out of here. She can go get help. And sure enough, she gets like 2/3 of the way up, and she just passes out.
Oof.
And falls to her death, and it's pretty dark. Like it feels like a sort of thud style. I don't even know if there was an audible thud, but it felt like there was one. The way the characters reacted to it.
It's coming, but still, like when it happens, you're like, ah.
Yeah, it does have that feeling of like a Cube or like any movie where it kind of feels like there's no hope for any of these characters. Like they're all ultimately going to die, and that's not actually the case here. A couple of them do make it out, but they've lost a lot of their lives. Like.
Oh yeah.
They've. I think at the end he says he's 50 and he was 6 at the start of the movie, so he's missed a lot of life. Like all of his best years, one might say, are gone. Obviously, Rufus Sewell actually kills the rapper at one point. He stabs him, and that's where they all sort of like have to team up and get the knife off of him, and they just kind of leave him on his own at that point because he's too dangerous. It's like, we'll just leave him over there. That stuff's interesting enough. The thing I don't like so much is his young wife. I actually think her story is a bit just weird and stupid, where she kind of gets a hunchback and become like, I wouldn't say she looks older. She just looks more deranged as the movie goes on.
So like she earlier in the movie when they're at the hotel, I believe she mentions that she has a calcium deficiency, which what it seems to be like in this island where she's getting older. I guess maybe if you don't have enough calcium, you basically turn into like this like herky jerky witch.
Well, I think it's kind of like to compare it to Unbreakable, you know, Samuel L. Jackson's character, you know, his bones break really easily. I think as she gets older, with a lack of calcium obviously helping her, she's like, her bones get very brittle. But what happens is that much like the Cuts, is that we get this scene in the film where she's basically just ramming her limbs against rocks, and she's breaking her bones, but they're actually healing and setting incorrectly, much like Connor's arm just did. Just to give you a comparison point. His wasn't as, you know, out of place as these bones are, because this is the thing, when she's coming at them, and the two kids in the dark, and they've got like a match, and she's kind of like this witch, like contorting, sorry, and like her arms and legs are all like sort of round their own ways and stuff. It just kind of felt like this feels like it's going too far into like some sort of super schlocky kind of thing, where this doesn't feel as related to the premise as everything else does. This feels like you're just sort of going on a wild ride down this avenue. And that's it.
No, I'll definitely agree. It doesn't really fit, or at least it doesn't really seem to kind of fit the rest of the tone of the movie, because this very much feels like we're almost going into like Conjuring territory.
Yes.
Like, but I'll be honest, I kind of liked it. Like, it's like, I liked how over the top and creepy it was trying to be, but I do agree though that, yeah, it doesn't really feel that right for the film. Even like to the point where, yeah, like the characters are like constantly lighting matches, like so they can see it. Like, you don't really need to do that. Just leave. Just be like, okay, sorry, we bothered you. We'll let you stay here. Like, let's go. But they are acting like, you know, she's a witch coming for their souls or something.
Yeah. I mean, what's she going to do if her bones are this brittle anyway? Like,
right, yeah.
You'll win the fight. I'm pretty confident you're going to like be able to like fight her off. It's
she's a calcium vampire.
Was it like a vampire who just goes after cows or something?
Yeah, instead of sucking your blood, she sucks your calcium.
All right, okay. Going back to What We Do in the Shadows, then you get Colin Robinson's an energy vampire, and then she's a calcium vampire. Sure. Makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, that was the one that I kind of felt went down like a weird role. It's around this point in the movie where, like, you know, the dad, he starts to like lose his vision a little bit. He's got these glasses, but obviously he can't get any. The mum, who's healed from her tumor, one of her ears has started to go, so she only hears it at one side now. And it's like, okay, so they're getting older now, they're getting a bit more wrinkly. Basically, Rufus Sewell ends up like getting his knife back and the sort of attack. It's a really well shot scene, honestly. And it's quite horrific because he's coming at them, and because it's dark at this point. They're by a little fire they've made on the beach, and he keeps slashing at the dad's arms, but they keep healing, but obviously still feeling the pain. Like it's still this horrible experience. And then the wife tries to shield him with her back, and she gets slashed a bunch in the back, and it's this really sad thing. And the mum wins because they set this up earlier in the movie, because the kids, when they first arrive, they find this little sort of pit of like things, and it's got like some old stuff and
hotel keys and stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things they find is like an old hotel fork, and they say, "Hey mom, look at this fork," and the mum looks at it and goes, "Oh, that's rusty, don't touch that because you might get infected," because it's been, you know, there for a long time. And this is, you know, basically the mum goes and gets one of these things and intentionally stabs Rufus Sewell with it. The idea being that he gets infected, and because it's all rapid, you can see it spread throughout his body, and he dies. And it's a pretty gnarly death. Yeah, but using our expertise, so I mean that's something.
Rusty forks are expertise.
Well, I was going to say she knows a lot about rust because she's a museum curator, and
that's true. Yeah.
It wasn't just a silly comment. I thought I was actually onto something, but
no, there's something there. It is funny how like this group of like random people like all just happen to like, I don't know, have like little jobs or quirks that end up being useful or have like some type of knowledge about the aging process.
Yeah, I mean that's just a movie thing, really. I mean they're not completely random in the sense that they've been picked by.
Well, right,
true. But they weren't picked for their jobs, though. They were picked for their various medical conditions.
It would have been a boring movie if it was like, just like me and my friends on the beach. Just be like, "Hey guys, I think this beach is making us old." Oh, why is it doing that? I don't know.
Then you'd all try and leave and you'd all die together. Yeah, that's basically what the premise of the movie would be. Yeah. And because the parents, they've kind of bickered a little bit here and there. We found out the mum was cheating on the dad at one point, but they kind of have this sweet ending where they're both sort of like dying, growing old and dying together, where they kind of say they don't care about anything anymore. They don't even remember why they wanted to leave the beach. They're just forgetting things now. And it's kind of this sweet ending. Obviously, I think if you're going to say this movie has any kind of message, it's like, even if things feel like they're going quick, try and enjoy each moment for what they are, and that general sentiment's there. Like, it absolutely is. And it's kind of sweet. And then, the only people who survive today too are the two kids who, when they wake up in the morning, or we see them for the first time in the morning. Now it's a middle-aged man and a middle-aged woman, and they're basically just like accepting that they're going to die here maybe about 12 hours from now, and let's just build a sandcastle because screw it. Screw it. But the big plot beat though that we glossed over is that they, in like all the old stuff, they found like a diary, like a journal of like some scientist or something who came here and was studying it and talks about how there's minerals here that are doing this to people. But they basically deducted from it that maybe if you had like a metal shielding, maybe you could leave. It would like protect you from the blacking out. And like, but how do we do that? There's like nothing here. It's a beach. And so it's like, okay, well, I guess we can't. But it turns out that the friend that the kid made at the start, the nephew of the guy who runs the resort, like he gets sent him like a coded message that he finally says, I never decoded that message, and it's like, okay, we're late in the movie, this is going to be important, like whatever this is, it's going to give them some sort of big hint. And the message is, my uncle doesn't like the corral, and they basically deduce that maybe that corral is a natural shield, and maybe if they swim through that, they'll get like through the barrier and they'll be able to get to safety and live. And we get this big sequence where they go out and swim. It seems like they're trapped in the corral for a moment because she gets her shirt caught, and then it cuts to M. Night Shyamalan, who's the mysterious one who's been watching from a distance the whole movie, and he watches for a minute, but they don't come out, so he's like, well, they drowned, and calls it in. And so obviously I was expecting them to like reveal, no, the two of them did survive somehow, and maybe set up that this is going to lead to something. Like one of the characters, yeah, maybe one of the characters they talked to at the start was a police officer, so they kind of go to him at the end.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And like, hey, look at this journal. It's got a bunch of names written down, and the cop that looks into it, and it's a bunch of missing people. But like this entire section of the movie, though, like most of it, I think, like just like takes away the mystery, because we follow M. Night back to like a lab, and we find out explicitly that what they're doing here is that what they feed and give the guests to drink when they arrive is like experimental medication, and they're seeing if it works for their conditions, like in a rapid amount of time. They can tell in one day if anything works, and this is like trial number 73 or something like that. And they're actually excited to announce that for the first time something's worked, because the woman who had seizures went, most of the day without having any seizures. So they actually had a successful thing. So they're like, okay, the sacrifices, but we're here to like save lives, millions of lives. So these people are guinea pigs, and this is like, what it is. And I'm like, okay, this feels like it maybe over-explained it a bit, but
it just feels so strange because like the whole movie has been like these people kind of fighting this force of nature, but then like all of a sudden now it's like people versus like this big evil corporation.
Now there's a human villain, or there's human villains, and it's kind of weird to shift to that, because like before it is this, like you say, force of nature, this mysterious force that's doing this. It kind of robs it of the mystery, and I think it goes even further with that, though. I think it gives you too much of a resolution to the characters, because
absolutely,
like I could have been okay with them like walking up to the kid, right, and showing him the decoder message thing, and it cut in there, right. That would have been an okay place to cut it, so the kid would realize this is his friend grown up and that he saved his life. Cut there. But like there's this last scene in a helicopter where they're with the police officer, and they just like why are you flying over this beach in a helicopter for a start? And the policeman's just like asking them questions like, oh, so you're going to meet your aunt at the airport when you get back to the US? And he's like, yeah, how's she taking it? Well, how would you feel if your 6-year-old nephew like phoned as a 50-year-old man? And I'm like, I feel like you're just over explaining like what their lives are going to be now. Like, just let it be ambiguous. Like, just cut. You don't have to tell us like that he's going to go live with his aunt. Like, it's it felt too in a bow. Like, he has to over explain everything. And maybe that's because people have complained about previous M Night movies that he wanted to just completely, dot the T's, or sorry, dot the I's and cross all the T's. Yeah. But it felt like the last 10 minutes did kind of suck a lot of the mystery out of the movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, like, I mean, all this stuff, like, in theory, like I don't think it's a bad explanation for, why they were brought to the island, and like, whatever, like, I guess it's nice to see some justice being done and seeing, like, those people getting arrested and, that kind of stuff. Like, that stuff is fine, but, yeah, it shouldn't be, like, the last 10 minutes of a movie that had, like, nothing to do with it, like earlier. Like, like you said, it just feels tacked on and a little too unnecessary.
It feels like a movie that was basking in the mystery, and I think just like watching M Night like watched for them drowning, like put his camera down and maybe just like hear him say something like test 73 is done and leave it there, and that would give you the idea that there's people testing like testing these people. And then I think from there, like, okay, so they've all got medical conditions, maybe they're testing something with medicine or so, like, from there you could let it be like a theorizing thing that's not completely spelled out, but the movie just like completely just here's everything. Here's the bad guys getting their comeuppance because now the police are onto it and they're going to investigate it. Like, it's like, okay, I guess, like, I don't know. I just didn't need all of that. Like,
I totally agree. And what's going on with that kid's uncle or whatever? Like, is he just always walking around going like, oh, I hate that coral. Oh, I hate that coral. Oh, I hate it so much.
Well, there's a line on the phone to M Night where he says, and it says the one who got out last year through the coral still drowned afterwards.
Yeah.
So presumably there's been this one incident where someone actually, maybe just by luck, got out through the coral, and it like. I guess he complained. Maybe the kid overheard him say something like, "Well, we just better hope they don't figure out that coral thing." Like,
And it seems like just like a weird thing for the kid to latch onto. Like, I mean, it's like a whatever minor nitpick, but it's just something that kind of stuck out to me. Like, I guess of all the messages, that's kind of weird. Unless like the kid knew, like, oh no, he's going to that island where the only way out is the coral. I better warn him. Whatever. And then the other thing is I also could have done without like, it already kind of feels suspenseful going through the coral and, having M Night up there and stuff. Like, I didn't also need like the shirt getting caught on it, especially because it seemed like very easy to get out of. Like, I mean, I'm sure you're a little more panicky when you're swimming and stuff, but it's not like she was wearing like a tight binding piece of clothing. Like, it seemed like you really could have just easily slipped out of the shirt. Like, or coral is pretty tough. I'm sure you could have just ripped it off instead of like it made it seem like there's no way I could go on. This tiny piece of fabric is just attached to this coral.
Even when it was way to do a flashback to how they survived by showing that they had like a little air pocket. Like, I'm like, you didn't need to tell me this. Like, this, I could have just assumed there was something like this. It really overly explained everything at the end in a weird way that I do think hurts the ending. But luckily, I don't think it takes away from the fun of all the discovery of everything throughout the movie.
Sure.
I would have like really held back on a lot of the ending stuff and just like, no, this is too much. Just show that they survive. Maybe have a moment where they reunite with the kid that saved their life, because there is a nice sentiment there that this kid's innocent and like knows that his uncle's doing something wrong regardless of what the reasons are. Because it's funny, you made a lost joke at the start of this, but they do kind of like tease that there's this company that runs this place that is doing all this testing, and I'm like, this is a little Dharma Initiative in a way. Like,
sure,
a little bit. So but like this, I had fun though. Like, for all the critiques I'm having about the ending and maybe one or two character plot lines, like I generally was having a good bit of fun and enjoyed how it was directed and how it was revealing and hiding some of the faces, how it was getting the idea of the frenzied tension across where one person's trying to talk reason but the camera's like darting around to all the people to like saying different things.
I agree. I think it's a generally good movie, and not perfect by any stretch. But I mean, this is definitely. Maybe people will say that it's not very hard, but I mean, this is in the higher, end of Shyamalan for me. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not top 3, but
sure.
But yeah, or even top 4 even. But yeah, I mean, it's easily better than The Happening and The Visit. So I mean, give it points
For
there.
Sure. Yeah.
Like I said, haven't seen Last Airbender or After Earth. I am not making any comments on those movies with that statement. But hey,
the all right, $1 million question though.
Mm-hmm.
If someone offered you $1 million to go to that beach, would you do it?
What's the point of getting $1 million if I'm going to be dead?
Would you rather die a millionaire or?
But there's no point of being a millionaire if I don't get to spend it. What am I going to do at the beach with $1 million?
All right, so your answer is no.
The answer is definitely no. Yes.
Okay.
Now, if they said, would you send Tim to that beach for $1 million? I'd say yes. Ship him off. Because all right. I suppose we're at movie rating.
Were you gonna say we're out of time?
No, I was gonna say we're on a movie rating time. So tell me, what are you going to rate Old out of 10?
I'm I don't know why I was trying to think of like a clever way to say it, but I'll just give my score, which is a 7. I think it's good. It's it's weird to say because I was gonna say it's a fun movie, but it is kind of dark. But I mean, there's definitely like schlocky, over the top moments that make it fun.
It's that weird thing, like I was saying about the baby thing. It's so dark that it does kind of like come back around into schlocky again.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but definitely that's what I was feeling as I was watching it.
Like, M. Night is very interesting. Like, I do wonder how, like, self-aware of stuff he is sometimes. Like, because it definitely, I don't know. There's definitely stuff that feels like, all right, are you trying to be serious here, or are you kind of in on the joke a little bit? And I'm not saying like all of his stuff is like goofy bad. I think some of his stuff is generally good and affecting, and like we were saying before, I would say he's a pretty talented director. I mean, he's made bad movies, but like again, like in this movie, like the camera work and stuff is just like it's very good. And I think especially in a day and age where I don't know, I feel like we're kind of losing that with
a lot of
these.
Yeah, like I mean, you know what, I watched Eternals last week, Tim. And it's not a great movie. It's really messy. I wouldn't say I liked it. I would say it's pretty mixed bag. But I will say this: it looked like a movie, unlike a lot of or all the Marvel movies. It actually looked like a film.
Yeah.
So
I'll give it that.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'll give it that. But like it stuck out to me just how much of a basic TV show so many of those Marvel movies look like these days.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like most Marvel movies, but like I don't know, I do agree though that they're like I mean you get into a big debate about it, but
you don't like them for the direction, the visual style.
Yeah, like they they do feel like popcorn roller coaster rides a lot of the time, which is totally fine because sometimes that's what you're in the mood for. But yeah, I don't know, these people that like they act like they're the highest form of art. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, it was also a roller coaster movie, Popcorn, at Jurassic Park, and that is exceptionally well directed. Sure. So you can have the good direction on top of the roller coaster ride. Like, you absolutely can. So my rating of Old is actually, this is one of these weird things where I feel like how like when women live together, like their cycles can line up. I feel like we've been podcasting and reviewing horror movies together for too long, Timmy, that I feel that we are too in sync, because I was thinking 7 for this as well.
That's true.
Against all odds, Shyamalan's whipped out a 7 on us, and I am very impressed. So I'm going to answer the mystery because I was expecting the movie to tell me by the end. I don't think it ever came up though what the movie was that starred Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando.
Yeah. The only thing I kept thinking of, which I know this is wrong, but I like Easy Rider was the thing that kept coming in my head. But that's Peter Fonda and.
Yeah, I googled it. I just googled movie. Clearly, other people have googled this because the autofill gave it to me. But the movie's called The Missouri Breaks from 1976.
Oh, okay, that's all right. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, it's about someone tracking down a horse thief. It's a western. So.
Ooh. Horses.
You try to think about how if the themes relate to this movie. I don't know if there is. Maybe if you watch it, you'll see something. But
one thing actually, I was gonna try to remember to mention because I was talking about this with a friend and he brought up a really good point. But this movie also feels like pretty timely. Like, and like. When you think about like what's been going on the last couple of years, and it kind of feels like, we've been stuck in this, or at least a lot of people, like, we've been kind of stuck in this one place, like just getting older, and I don't know, it feels kind of timely, like in that respect.
There's a conversation where the kids are saying we never got to go to prom, we never got to have all these memories that most people have when they're kids growing up. We just didn't get that, and if you think about it, a lot of school kids these last 2 years like probably missed out on a lot of normal things that. Everyone else who went through school did and will do again in the future, hopefully at some point. But it's interesting. Just the interesting thing, Randy Quaid's also in this movie.
What?
I know.
Okay, like it's just like a background person or something?
No, he's third on the list. He's like next. It's Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson, Randy Quaid.
Oh, I thought you were talking about old. I was like, wait, what?
No. In the Western.
Okay.
I didn't know Randy Quaid was acting in the 70s. This is.
Oh, jeez.
This is. Harry Dean Stanton's also in it, but I expect him to be in movies then because he was ancient when he passed away. He was in his 90s. But
R.I.P.
Oh yeah, wonderful actor. But yeah, so. But a trivia. The Missouri Breaks is the movie that the doctor was talking about. He was trying to remember. So there you go. I guess that about does it. That has been Screams After Midnight. So I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess.
Are you gonna do it in like an old voice?
Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Al Tribesman.
For some reason, your old voice just sounds like a German vampire.
I don't know how to do an old voice, but thank you.
Just kind of got to tremble a lot. Oh, you darn kids. Oh, Tyler Hess, get off my lawn.
Oh, dear. So you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses.
Or as high as $100 a month.
I mean, there's no limit really. You technically
1,000.
I mean, there's nothing. I'm not going to give you anything extra for it, but you could put in 10,000 a month if you really want to.
I mean, if you put in 10,000 in a month, you can have my job. You can host Screams.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there is like a limit where Patreon will say, no. This is like scandalous amounts. No, we're not letting you do that. But
it's like when like the mafia needs to launder money.
But like you can put in a custom amount. You can say like I'm picking this reward tier, but you can then say, but I'm going to give 72 a month for some. If for some reason you wanted to, you could.
How about this for a pitch for a movie? There's this crime family who has all this money, but they need to launder it, so they have like the nephew like makes a podcast, but like he gets really into it.
So they just give him it all on Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Funny.
There's something to that.
Yeah. Or some dodgy GoFundMe's maybe.
Yeah.
No, so good supporters.
I shouldn't say that because now people are gonna start investigating our Patreon.
especially since the bonus episodes for Screams After Midnight are back. We did our first one back in a long time in January. Werewolves Within, and we'll have another one for you next month. And we're also doing even more streams, which is kind of just a sort of casual catch-up show, at least once a month. So you can go check out that too. So you get that for $1 a month on Patreon, and obviously you get other stuff at higher tiers. And so go have a look. You can also support us by liking, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications, all that stuff on YouTube, rating us 5 stars with a review on your podcast app of choice, iTunes, whatever it is. So go and do any and all those things. Get us on Twitter at Screams Midnight for channel updates and random shenanigans. I'm going to make Tim pose for the thumbnail. So I guess try and be old. 3, 2, 1, pose. all right. Not bad. That is about us then. So thank you very much for watching Screams After Midnight or listening.
My birthday's coming up soon, so I will be older.
True, yeah. I'm in May,
2 months.
so I'm not that far behind. You're in March, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right, so thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies. And my cadence was all wrong there. I was like, why does it not sound like I'm about to say my final line? Because I'm just I sound wrong. Yes, keep watching scary movies, guys. We'll see you next time. We're out.